They're all 45 minutes long. I used to listen to Bruce Springsteen or Tina Turner, Stevie Wonder, I know Carole King running. And even now when I prepare for Ironman race, I mean, one time I think I biked for 8 hours. I mean, I listened to 12 Tim Keller sermons during those 12 hours.
Welcome, Mike. It is such a joy for Micah and I to spend some time learning from you. Your story really fits our longing for this 100X podcast and the theme of leaders who found ways for their life to be the soil that produces 100-fold impact in this world and even beyond. Every 100X leader's life is unique, and that's what makes it so interesting. And our goal is to share and celebrate stories like yours, but also to inspire other kingdom-minded leaders and then to learn deeply from each other. So we would love to uncover what you've been doing, what you've done to hear God's voice in your life in this last season, and to embrace it even when it's hard or costly, and then how you've seen him produce a crop that's beyond your wildest dreams, and of course what you're dreaming of for the future. So with that in mind, Micah, if you would guide our conversation.
Right. Mike, thanks so much for your time today. I think it would be helpful if you would just start off telling everyone a little bit about growing up and how you ultimately ended up in America.
Wow. Lloyd, what a great intro. I love it. And by the way, I've met some of the 100X participants. You asked me to speak with them before, and every one of us met just amazing, amazing people of values and faith. So thank you. And Mika, great to meet you. Any friend of Lloyd is a friend of mine. But I was born in Skopje, which is the capital of Macedonia. Used to be Yugoslavia back in 1953 when I was born. Skopje is a wonderful city, and even better known is the hometown also for Mother Teresa. She was born there. She left for Ireland when she was a teenager before going to India, do that remarkable work she was doing in Calcutta, many parts of the world. At that time, Yugoslavia was a communist country. We grew up with very little material goods, material means, and frankly, that was very common with most of the people at that point in time. It was only 4 of us in the family, my sister who was 2 years younger, and my parents. And interesting, you could call it even a miracle, my mom had me when she was 40. She had a number of miscarriages before. So to had myself at 1953, my sister in 1955, me sort of as someone had been watching over me even back then. And despite being a very poor country, I do remember a very wonderful childhood. I mean, if you have loving parents, good schools, a sense of a fairness in the system, and promise for the future, I mean, as a youngster, that was quite sufficient. I was also a big fan of the president of the country at that time. Lloyd has heard me say this thing many times before. Marshal Tito was the first hero in my life. I mean, he overthrew the king of Yugoslavia before when the king signed a pact with the Germans to be allies with the Nazis in World War II. He delayed, by fighting the Germans, delayed the German attack on Russia by a few months, which had a pretty profound impact on World War II outcome. In 1948, he actually stepped out of the Warsaw Pact. There was a brutal 5-year blockade, economic blockade. As maybe people understand, blockades don't work, tanks do. He started a non-aligned movement with 5 other prime ministers of Egypt, Nasser, India Gandhi, Ghana, and Indonesia. They started a non-aligned movement, so did not like Russia, but there was a sense that the West maybe is too materialistic and too fast. So as a youngster, again, I'm not embarrassed to say, I was really drawn into communism and socialism. I mean, I could not imagine a world being without everyone being exactly the same. And also, as Lloyd knows, Yugoslavia, religion was not forbidden, but really was explained away. As Karl Marx would say, the opium for the masses. So anyway, I thought I was doing well in school, and I thought my goal is to be either a politician, which is being viewed as a noble profession, or a soccer player. I mean, those, and I thought, this is, I thought I was well on the way. Then the world turned completely upside down. In 1969, we immigrated to the United States. My dad's sister, he came here a few years before that. He came back, that's all he talked about. And his sister and her family supported us. It took 3 years to get to, quote unquote, become a legal immigrant. Although we're not people of, quote unquote, Christian faith at that time, we were praying for the paperwork not to come. But it did come, so we came here in spring of 1969. None of us spoke English. My parents were 55 at the time. They never learned to speak the language. They both worked in factories. And so it's quite challenging in the beginning. People could not be more welcoming. We moved to the west side of Cleveland. But at the same time, if your friends, you thought you had figured out what life was all about, even at an early age. But after a couple of years, I mean, this is the United States of America. I mean, far from perfect. We're learning even more about some of the imperfections of our past. But I would argue the best country in the world, best experiment of all time, not perfectly executed, far from it. I've been in over 100 countries. So eventually you start believing the American dream, and although you still miss the old country, you become accustomed to the lifestyle here. I didn't know a difference between Princeton or Cuyahoga Community College. They both tried to recruit me for swimming. It's a long story, but I ended up at Edinburgh State College in Pennsylvania. Not a school you aspire your kids to go to, but it was fabulous for me. As Lloyd knows, we try to be pretty philanthropic. No one gets more money than Edinburgh State College. Now, it's Edinburgh University, actually, it's just renamed recently to Penn West. Graduated in 1975. Had a choice of playing professional soccer at the fledgling professional football and soccer league at that time, or join the corporate world, and I joined the latter. So anyway, maybe a little bit longer, but that is my background, Mika.
That's really cool. How did you ultimately make your decision between trying to go pursue soccer and get into business?
I mean, my wife accuses me of being so aggressive and optimistic. I would think I was probably realistic. I was a very good and skilled soccer player, good size, but certainly did not have the speed to make a living in soccer. So I think that probably was the main reason. And I hit the jackpot. I mean, by joining General Electric, I'm not sure if the next question will be the professional, but I joined General Electric out of college.
I love it. Before we move on with your career, where did you meet your wife along the way?
GE. So if you remember, Ronald Reagan used to do the commercials for General Electric. GE brings good things to life. So certainly, I've used that line many times. Not the first time today, but we met at General Electric 42 years ago. Just celebrated our 40th year anniversary a few months ago, in April 9th. 3 sons, Matt, Kirk, and Todd. Just like their dad, they married way up. So we have 3 wonderful daughter-in-laws. Catherine, or Cal, she goes by Callie, K-A-L-I, and I have a real challenge I keep practicing to say it properly, but she's the oldest. I mean, she's married to her oldest son. Monique is married to a second son, Kirk, and Caroline married to the youngest, the 6'9" baby in the family. And we have 7 grandkids and soon to be 9. One in September and one in December. So that's the gift that keeps on giving. And despite this crazy lifestyle I've had, I mean, the family has really kept me grounded. We moved 7 times during our time with General Electric, traveled all over the world, met many people, shared many exhilarating and some really tough situations, but the family has always been the common denominator, if you will. Robin continues to be a rock in the family. This is including really the CEO in the house. And as we've discussed business later, all 3 boys now are working with me in the family business.
That's so fun. So tell us a little bit about your career at General Electric and then how you ultimately transitioned out of there.
Yeah. I mean, I hit the jackpot. I mean, going to Edinburgh State College, had good grades, especially the last 5 semesters. But I mean, when you talk about God sightings, I went to for an interview at GE, just one of these random events in my life. There's so many of them. It's as random as that somebody watching over you. And this was back in 1975. I was close to getting a job offer from Procter & Gamble. And I go to GE, the person I was dating at the time, so GE is hiring the ones you come and interview for their training programs. So I drive from Cleveland to Erie, PA, where the GE transportation business was. And to make a long story short, there really is a training program for mid-level managers to practice their interview skills. So you're a guinea pig. They give you $10, and I was really offended. It's like, I'm a serious candidate. I'm interviewing with Procter & Gamble and IBM. I didn't drive all the way here for $10. They said, well, you're here. Let's go through the interview. So you have the CEO for the transportation business, Rick Richardson on one hand, top HR guy with the other. They just happen to be there. So they're watching the mid-level manager interview me for his development. And I told him, look, I've heard great things about the financial management program through my classes at Edinburgh. I thought I came here to interview for that. And this is like August of 1975, June of 1975. All the jobs had been filled 9 months before that. But for whatever reason, I left such a good impression on those 2 individuals. So the rest is history. I mean, I spent 25 years there. I went from being a communist to becoming really a real big fan of the free enterprise system, Jack Welch in particular, and really began a love affair with the business of business. Much success and also some challenging periods. I became CEO of the first GE business at age 32, CEO of 5 different businesses within General Electric, became president of Motorola, 150,000 employees, a pretty challenging stint at Nortel. Then I thought I had a dream job being advisor to Blackstone and chairing a number of their companies. And we'll be discussing my epiphany a little bit later. But I love the corporate world, specifically GE and Welch, and a strong conviction. And I'll be open here. I keep trying to think, is this a God's calling? Or is this Mike's way of trying to play his strengths and rationalize? But I really believe that well-run, values-based businesses are a true blessing, are a most valuable asset to any community, to any society, to any country. I mean, we're getting the proper solutions for communications, transportation, medicine, healthcare. I mean, look how we're communicating now. So I do think that businesses get so broad brushes being the evil people in gray suits. You do anything. You sell your grandmother to make the quarter. You lie, steal, and cheat to make, and it's such a caricature of what businesses do. There's bad apples in everything. Churches, symphonies, colleges, sports teams, businesses. But I would argue that on balance, businesses have as many guidelines, cultures as any other organization. So really that's been a key driver. Even when I go back in Macedonia, where I grew up, to help. Now, lots of the business practices can be applied to activities like the Halftime Institute, can be applied to public schools and so on. So anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I really believe that, again, well-run, values-based business is a true gift to society. And just a little comment of religion at this point in time was religion and faith was very rarely discussed in the business environment. Maybe I was not asking the right questions, but ever since I met Robin, we used to go to church all the time. I would argue it's mostly to be a good role modeling for the kids. Was comforting, was peaceful to go there, but I was still so far away to really even to know what having a personal relationship with Jesus meant. How do you describe Trinity, if you will? But the process really had started, especially coming to Chicago, going to church and so on. So anyway, that's a in short part, if you will, the corporate career. Anyway, I think that's.
Mike, I'm curious, how did you balance? You've had some very, high profile roles in business. How did you balance over the years? You talked about earlier how important your family and your marriage is to you. How did you balance that along the way when you were kind of climbing the corporate ladder at GE and then becoming a CEO?
I mean, really was not that hard for me. I mean, still, I always discuss, always thinking what we had done better, but really was career and family. I don't think I ever missed a soccer game. I don't think I ever missed any important graduations, symphonies, speeches, plays they had, guitars. When the boys was playing drums, so I don't think I ever missed anything that was even reasonably structured. But 2020 hindsight, I wish I had spent even more personal time. But it was always under career, not-for-profits, and the family. I mean, actually, I would just say the career and the family were equal. Robin also had a great career. After we had our first, she decided to stay home. She's always been very active. But that again, many hobbies I had before I got married. Lots of those things got pushed out on the side. But really, there was the view of it. Those are the priorities, and again, I spent no regrets whatsoever.
Were you able over the years, you talked about the importance of value-based businesses, which I know now that you're able to influence that in the companies that you guys buy and run, but were you able over the years in some of these larger organizations to instill some values-based impact and change the culture of these larger companies?
Oh, absolutely, positively. Absolutely. I mean, the view of even just to digress just for a second, in October 1, 1986, when I least expected, I got tapped in the shoulder to be a CEO. So I'm about to speak to 400 people. And I still remember my knees shaking. I wasn't sure if they can tell, they can say, but I spoke with them. Probably 25% English was a second language. This is outside Seattle. And I said, look, this is what you can expect from me. So I introduced myself. I said, by the way, I'm surprised they gave me this job. You probably as well. But let me tell you what you can expect from me, and what I expect from you. Number one, we absolutely delight customers. Not to simply give them a coffee, take them to a ball game, buy them dinner, but to really know what drives their businesses, their families, and if they have any sort of a challenge, they'll think of us first. Second, I said, we will have the best work environment of any company. Yeah, pay well, benefits, but really hope that each one of you would have the confidence that wherever your career ambition is, you can make it here. Now, it was easier to make that commitment in General Electric because 500,000 people working there. If not, there's always an opportunities. So number 3, superior financial results. Let's see, if I started with the biggest company, most profitable, that's not going to get the heart racing. But I'm absolutely convinced if we do 1 and 2 well, 3 should be a natural outcome. 4th one is giving back to the communities. Is look, maybe this is my communist upbringing, but to whom much is given, much is expected. And what are this day of giving? What are this aligning with United Way? If you have a special event, ask me, I'll come to it. I said maybe it's selfish because you know people that are community and philanthropic, they probably make much better people, much better employees anyway. But it's the right thing to do. 5th one is competing and winning. They say we spend way too much time in the office not to want to be the best. If this is too fast for you, we're going to miss you. Hopefully your G experience will be good for you some other place. But we really want to be the best. We want to train people. And again, whatever your career ambitions are, we want to help you get there. And the last one really was to say, and I've used this one page every job I've had for the last 45 years. Last one, whatever you say the values are for that company, whatever they may be. At General Electric, there was a personal energy, energy, energize others, edge, make tough decisions when you need to, and execute. But there's all kinds of values. Make sure that you, as a leader, embody those. And any decision you make on promotions, demotions, raises, and so on are consistent with those. And if people believe that, I mean, I still see people that I've mentored 34 years ago. And what that makes it easy is that you make that commitment. If you have a hard decision to make, in a corner office, it's nighttime, you have to make a decision. This is G. What do you have? 400 employees, 150,000 employees. If you make a decision that's inconsistent with what you said, are you going to be like most people? Well, he says one thing, but he does another thing versus he's doing that consistent with those. Again, none of those things are special. They're not unique. But again, what I really thought was, pretty special and unique in all companies we had. I mean, we actually behaved that way, and that's how we made decisions. That's how we ran the business.
And Mike, I've gotten to know some of those CEOs that are 20 years younger than you that had the privilege of being mentored by you for 20, 22 years. And you can see that today just rippling out of them inside the companies that they either chair or lead or own. And I mean, that's really, when we talk about 100x return, this is really what you're counting on, right? Is producing values-based leaders in enterprise that bring a blessing in our world. So
absolutely,
you have an interesting portfolio now that I want to kind of tease out a little bit, because that's the background. But talk about the portfolio of things where you bring the same leadership to the schools in Chicago, the Macedonia 2025, the work you're doing in your own family, private equity, buying companies and improving them and improving the lives of people. It's interesting that you'd think that's kind of disjointed, but it's integrated, right? Even though it's a portfolio. So talk about, how do you get clear on your unique calling when you went through a journey of renewal at halftime, and then describe that mission and how it's playing out in those different platforms.
I mean, Lloyd, you probably can answer that question as well as I can, because you've been such a big part of it. But I'll digress just for a second. I'll try to move rapidly. I mean, ever as a young boy, I've been obsessed with what's right or wrong. What is the right way to society to be formed? How do you help those at the bottom, if you will? That's why communism as a young kid was inspiring. And fast forward, moving to Chicago, again, some more God sightings through a church, going through some of the church strips, see young people getting engaged in service work at nighttime, just really going deeper and deeper into the faith discussions. Then out of the blue, they asked me to go to Bible studies. I thought, me? Are you sure? And then in 2009, they asked me to start a faith at work program. I says, you must have the wrong mic. 118 speakers later. I mean, it's just a fabulous ministry. We ask people about their life journey, their faith journey, and how they bring faith to work. So I thought actually I had arrived. My faith was flourishing. And at the time, there's still this smoldering discontent that something still was missing. And then out of the blue, a friend of both Lloyd and I, Joel, says, Mike, I'm going through this program called Halftime Institute. You probably can teach half the classes there. He's trying to butter me up, but actually could be useful for you to consider it. Talk to my friend Lloyd Rape. She said, it's great. And there's a big faith component. It says, Joel, I am there. I'm hosting this faith at work, but I'll if you ask me, I'll take this phone call with Lloyd, and I'll politely say no after we're done. And there was just a fabulous discussion, Mika. I mean, I will not go through all the elements, but one of those, it's the discussion of perfect life matrix. I've gone through some exercises before, but there really was critical question being asked at that time. And for the next 12 months, and again, I have the halftime roadmap in front of me. So they really formed, dramatically my life. So I'm a project graduate from 2016. The mission statement is to build impactful, values-based organizations and leaders. Perfect life matrix number 1, to be a knowledgeable, practicing, and joyful Christian. Worship God every day. Just think about it. Knowledgeable, practicing, and joyful. I would argue any one of those 3 things is a pretty tall bar. Put all 3 of them together, it's it's going up and down Mount Everest twice in the same year. Lloyd and I were able, Lloyd was very helpful to get Robin's dream, if you will, and our family vision. That's a story on its own. Again, I'll save it for another time, how we came up with it. But this one really, I went from 7 for-profit boards, where quite often you make or chair of companies for Blackstone. You say, I would do things different. However, because we need to sell at this point in time, I have to do things that maybe would not align the way I think businesses should be run. Again, nothing against private equity, but simply I was looking on my own. Or the boards, if it's a public company, would do this. So the epiphany was I can be on the sidelines, lamenting, or if you know better, why don't you go ahead and try it yourself? So I'm now 0 outside boards, 0 anything for profit except a family business. Second, let's start a family business with a view of keeping the business in perpetuity. Perpetuity as much as it can mean in the human in earthly life, if you will. If you buy a company that's a good business without a succession plan, our proposition to that owner is we're going to keep that business in perpetuity. Give the best of what they bring our values, which I've discussed before. So that's a big part of the portfolio that Lloyd had mentioned. I've doubled down on my for-profit activities, always for the underdog. One of those is I was chairman for an organization that has taken over 31 formerly failing public schools. Organization called Academy for Urban School Leadership, AUSL. We train teachers to excel in the urban environment between 100 and 200 people every year, but also taking some field schools, so not only to be preaching what can be done. The progress in those schools is absolutely remarkable. The 31, 0, or there's, I think, 5 categories. 0 in the lowest category, only 1 or 2 in category 4. We get more than half in the top 2 categories. Something unprecedented in the United States of America, to take a failed urban school where the kids stay and the buildings stay, and the new approaches actually deliver those results. Massive involvement in Macedonia. Started a not-for-profit called Macedonia 2025 with a view of helping build a stronger nation. But working with Lloyd, I mean, the two things were really were to help accomplish the mission statement. What are some of the things that I can be around other Christian leaders that can just keep feeding on each other, sharing best practices? So, the result of that discussion, I am a proud member now of the CEO Forum, 180 active CEOs and chairmen of boards. They actually have made commitments to run their lives, their businesses, and all their affairs based on biblical principles. Also, I want to join a global organization, global not-for-profit. I worked with Lloyd. We looked at Special Olympics. We looked at World Vision and Goodwill. I'm a proud member now of Special Olympics. One of my experiences always has been to be able to drive matrix organizations, global brains, about how do you execute locally. All 3 of them have those sort of opportunities to improve. And I mean, the last one, this is, God bless Tim Keller, passed a couple of weeks ago, but as Lloyd said, Lloyd, through a faith journey, and now that you've gotten to know me, give me an advice of sermons to listen to. Give me a few of them. And right now, I mean, this is 6 years later, 7 years later, I probably have listened to 750, maybe 800 sermons of Tim Keller. They're all 45 minutes long. I used to listen to Bruce Springsteen or Tina Turner, Stevie Wonder, Carole King running. And even now, when I prepare for Ironman race, I mean, one time I think I biked for 8 hours. I mean, I listened to 12 Tim Keller sermons during those 12 hours. I'm sorry, 12, during 8 hours, 12 sermons during the 8 hours. So, but those are the things, if you will. There's so many temptations. Again, I wish I was perfect. I wish, my friends are, this is, none of us are. But just to be around people of value and faith, and to listen to someone like Tim Keller has been such a blessing. Anyway, I probably take too long. Yeah.
One thing that we do whenever, COVID interrupted it, but take 2 or 3 days, go to the mountains of North Carolina with 3 or 4 friends that are all talented business leaders, all living into their purpose statement. And, we have fun, we hike and we exercise. And I think this next October, we're going to go fly fishing, but we also look at each other's plan for the next and challenge each other. Right. And it's so important to have like a peer group around you where there's no place to hide. Right. You've seen my roadmap for, 12 years, probably.
I love it. Love it. Actually, I'm not mine is so busy, if you will. So it is I don't change as often as Lloyd does. But I certainly, again, you can look through every one of those things. I can go through a not-for-profit, the ZAP group to be role models for good businesses doing well. But again, that's been a transformational investment. And I love what the halftime is doing right now. I think Jim Stolberg and Tom McGee, they're doing a fabulous job with the Halftime Institute. Very close with the New Canaan Society out of Naples. City to City, the ministry that Tim Keller has started. So again, this is just to be around people and people
Micah, there's
different angles.
There's so much wisdom in there, right, for you and me, and for all of our friends listening. It's a wonderful balance of really the freedom of Mike seeing who he really is, why he blends capitalism with this passion he had for equality in culture and serving the poorest of the poor, but doing it using enterprises, right? That they buy and operate and build values-based leaders coming out of that, and spins off cash, and you give the cash away.
Thank you for listening to the 100X podcast. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast service. We would greatly appreciate it if you could rate the show and leave us a review. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor Investments, whose mission is to build America's most generous real estate company. To learn more, please visit anchorinv.com.